Is success overrated? Today's guest seems to think so, even though he's been incredibly successful. Richard Stearns is President Emeritus of World Vision US, a former corporate CEO at both Parker Brothers and Lennox, and the author of Lead Like It Matters to God. He joins me via Skype from Seattle, Washington. Richard, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here.
Okay, so first off, I don't think you're saying that success is a bad thing necessarily, right? But it shouldn't be our biggest focus.
Well, that's right. We live in a success-obsessed culture. We celebrate the wealthiest people, the winningest teams, the biggest churches, the fastest growing companies. And so we're all kind of marinating in this success-oriented culture that makes success the goal of our lives and our careers. And I like to say in my book that success is not a bad thing, but our goal as Christian leaders should be to be faithful. We want to be faithful leaders. We want to demonstrate with our character, the character of God, the character of Christ, to our coworkers and those around us. And so I make the statement, which is unusual for a leadership book, that success is overrated. I do believe that if you practice the values that I talk about in the book, that you probably will be more successful. But again, success is a byproduct, not the goal. God is not impressed by the title on our business card.
That's so true. So do you think that we're all called to be leaders in some fashion?
Well, I think, yes, absolutely. One of the myths about leadership is that leaders are rare, and we celebrate and put certain leaders on pedestals, and we think, wow, they're the leaders and we're not. But most of us in life are leaders in some context and followers in another context. So you may have a day job where you don't have many leadership responsibilities, but you might be a leadership in your community. You might be coaching a soccer team. You might be a leader in your church. So all of us are leaders in some way or another, and that's why leadership is important.
Now, the name of your book is really interesting, Lead Like It Matters to God. So that sort of begs the question, what does matter to God when it comes to leadership?
Well, I think God is concerned about the character of a leader. How do we represent God as we go into our leadership positions? And how do we treat the people that are around us? They could be above us or below us in an organization, but the people kind of entrusted to our care, it's about how do we treat those people and how do we see them? Do we see them as people made in God's image that are worthy of our respect and our care? Or is our leadership, as it often is, sadly, all about ourselves, all about the leader getting ahead and being successful and just using people to get there instead of looking at the people as my job as a leader is to help the people under me succeed and to bring out their God-given talents and gifts. And a successful leader is one that helps others realize their goals and their dreams and realize their God-given potential.
Interesting. You write that how we lead is actually, it matters more than the actual outcome. So why would that be?
I think sometimes we all imagine that day we might stand before God and give an accounting for our life. And I try to imagine that day, and I can't imagine God saying to me, Rich, we were just so impressed that you became a CEO when you were 33. You killed it. And when you were at Lennox Tableware, we were just so impressed for your 20 consecutive quarters of earnings growth. I don't think God is really impressed. It's not those things aren't important, but I don't think those are the things that impress God. God is much more concerned about how did we live our lives? How did we lead? How did we treat other people? How did we manage our money? How did we manage our families? And those are the things that will matter in the end. Sometimes I ask people, if you could write your own obituary, what would you want it to say? Would you want to say, I made all these real estate deals, or I started this company, I did this, or I made $1 million a year before I was 30? Probably if we wrote our own obituaries, we'd want them to talk about the people in whose lives we made a difference, the people we cared about and who cared about us. We'd want to talk about the human side of our lives and the relationships that mattered. not so much our achievements.
In your book, you write about 17 different character traits that are important for leadership. So you say that a couple of these are very important in today's climate, and that would be perseverance and vision. So can you elaborate on that?
Sure. I do write about these 17 leadership values. There are things like integrity and humility and encouragement and forgiveness and balance in our lives. But I think in this time of COVID, it's been a very challenging time for leaders. I'm actually glad to be retired right now and not leading World Vision because I don't envy my successor there. Um, but I think perseverance and vision are related and they're critical right now. People are disconnected. Many people are working from home and they don't have the usual camaraderie and fellowship of working together in a setting with other people. And so you start to lose the vision. You start to lose your sense of purpose. Why are we here? What are we trying to accomplish? You don't even see the other members of the team except virtually. And so I think a leader needs to really maintain a compelling vision for the team that they're leading, reminding them constantly of what we're trying to do together and how we're going to accomplish it, and kind of a vision for a better future because the present isn't all that great. And so the leader has to help the team see that light at the end of the tunnel and remember that, hey, we're going to get there and we're going to get there together. And then perseverance is the other side of that coin, that in the meantime, we all have to persevere. And when a leader shows that they can persevere, they encourage the people who work for them to believe that they can persevere as well. We'll get through this together. So I think those two qualities are particularly important right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, Richard, is there one thing about leadership that you wish that you had known about when you first began your career?
Yeah, there is. I get asked that question a lot, and the benefit of age is wisdom. And you look back and you say, these are the things I wish I knew when I was 25 or 35 years old. And I think the one thing that I focus on is the power of encouragement. A leader who is an encourager of people, encouragement brings a huge return on investment, and it's actually free. But many leaders take an approach of criticism. So you look at a person who's doing a job, maybe they work for you, and you tend to focus on the negatives, right? What are they doing wrong, and what do I want them to do better? Instead of looking at that person and seeing all of their gifts and talents and affirming the things they're doing well. I say in the book, imagine if you are a track runner, in high school or college, and you're on the 4x4 relay team. And so you run a race at a track meet, and you kind of bungle the handoff a little bit. So you lose a second and your team loses the race. Now, what if you work for a coach who says, you really messed up that handoff. If you don't fix that, we're never going to get to the state championship. You just really screwed up today. Well, that's one coach. What about the other coach that says, that was one of the best relay legs I have ever seen you run. If you can just work on that handoff a little bit, we're going to win the state championship. Well, I want to run for the second coach because he's encouraged me. He said, look at what you did well. And you've just got this one thing to work on. And if you fix that, the sky is the limit. So encouraging people is something that, again, it's free and it makes a huge difference in the morale of the team that you're leading. And they will rise to that challenge if you just give them a little pat on the back from time to time. There's a place for criticism, but you don't lead with it.
I love that. So like you mentioned humility before. So when someone's in a leadership role, it naturally comes with a bit of attention and limelight, right? So what does a leader need to do to walk in humility?
Well, the first thing I say is leaders shouldn't believe their own press clippings, because you read your own press clippings and your head gets big and you get full of yourself and you start to think it's all about you. And Rick Warren, the pastor down here in California, in his book, The Purpose Driven Life, he said this about humility. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. So, in other words, sometimes we think humility means that we're not gifted, or we're not proud of the strengths that we have as leaders. And that's not it at all. It's really about thinking less of yourself and more of others, more of the team, the greater good, and using those really great skills that you do have as a leader to lead your team and to accomplish things together. But a humble leader, nobody likes to work for an arrogant leader. An arrogant leader is a person who thinks, well, I have all the answers, so the rest of you are just chopped liver. I mean, I don't. Why should I listen to your opinions because I have all the answers? I'm the smartest one on the team. Nobody wants to work for that person. But a humble leader says, we all have something to contribute, and your ideas may be better than mine. And I want to listen to what you have to say and what you have to contribute. And then we'll do it together. We'll make a good decision and we'll do things together. So humility's important.
Yeah, you have all these great things on your list, and integrity, of course, is on your leadership characteristic list. So, practically speaking, what should that look like?
Well, I call integrity the North Star of leadership. If you don't have integrity, just go home, And again, nobody wants to work for a leader who has no integrity. And so, what does integrity mean? I talk about it in my book in two dimensions. There's relational integrity, right? The integrity you have in the relationships with your coworkers, and that means keeping short accounts and forgiving people when they mess up and asking for forgiveness when you mess up. It means that you're a person of your word. You're a person who can be trusted. People trust you to make fair and just decisions in the workplace. And so when a leader has that kind of integrity, everybody on the team is relaxed because they trust the leader. They trust the leader to do the right thing. And they don't have to always be looking over their shoulder or worried about, I don't know if I can trust the leader with this or piece of information or that piece of information. But then there's another kind of integrity I call organizational integrity, where the leader sets the tone for a whole organization. What are the expectations for integrity on this team and in this organization? And you set expectations that I expect people to be truthful and honest and fair in all of their dealings, and not being a person of integrity is acceptable if you work on my team. And that gives clear boundaries and guidelines to the people that work for you. And it sets the tone for the whole organization so that you have an organizational culture characterized by that kind of integrity as well.
Hmm. Did you compile this list by trial and error? Is that looking back on your career, are there things that you wish that you would have done differently? Was this wisdom developed over time?
Well, there's no question it was wisdom developed over time. Some of these things I learned the hard way. I made mistakes and didn't act the right way, and there were consequences to that. And so, hindsight is always 2020. And my goal in writing the book was that hopefully it would be helpful for younger leaders who are early in their career and or mid-career, and they're trying to be better leaders and they're trying to be better ambassadors for Christ in their workplace, even if it's a secular workplace. And and I think right now, Jeanette, we're living in a time when our values are kind of under assault. If you look at U.S. politics, I don't have to say anything more about values, integrity, humility, forgiveness, encouragement, generosity. We're not seeing that in many of our political leaders. But you look at corporate scandals, you look at the Me Too movement and all of the scandals that has revealed in almost every sector of our society. And then sadly, within the church, there have been scandals and difficult things. So right now, it seemed like a very timely moment to write a book about leadership values, that character matters, and that character is actually the main thing. Most of us would rather work for a leader who had a sterling character than a leader who had great competence but was a horrible person. And character goes a long way toward making a person a successful leader.
Yeah, no, that's true. You make a lot of sense. And you mentioned before about being ambassadors, right? And that can sometimes be challenging if you're working, especially in a secular company. So, did you ever get admonished for being too religious, so to speak?
So I worked 23 years in very secular work environments, Parker Brothers and Lennox, and I made it a point to always have a big leather Bible on my desk, because I wanted people to know that I was a person of faith. I didn't want to I didn't want to shove it down their throat, but I wanted it symbolically people would know because, Rich has got a Bible on his desk. I never tried to proselytize or force my faith on people, but it was amazing how many times people had noticed that Bible. And of course, they knew I went to church and I was involved in a youth group and my kids were in a Christian school. And when they were going through a hardship in their life, they would come in and shut the door and say, "Can I talk to you and get a little advice? And, you seem like a person of faith and values." And so, our character in a workplace is really our witness. And there's a scripture in 2 Corinthians 5:20 that when I was at World Vision, I had it literally stenciled on my wall, painted on my wall. And it goes like this: "We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God is making his appeal through us." So wherever you work, I mean, you could work at Amazon or Google or a TV station. Um, God is making his appeal through you in that place where you work. And that's an amazing responsibility. That's actually our main job as followers of Christ, to be his ambassador. And we might do that in a secular workplace. We might do that in the government, in an educational institution, or we might do it in a Christian ministry. But if we think about ourselves as ambassadors, we'll behave differently in the workplace.
Yeah, and it's amazing the doors that it can open, like you just shared the example there. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Richard. It looks like we are about out of time, but thanks for writing such a great book on values-driven leadership. Appreciate having you on here.
It's great to be on your program, Jeanette. Have a great day.